Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session today, iiRDS latest developments. My name is Suzanne. I work for TechCom Europe, and I'm in charge of the community management for the country organizations. And also one of my topics is iiRDS. That's why I'm moderator of this session today. And I'm very happy to introduce now our speakers for today that will give you an overview, as it says, on the latest developments of iiRDS, what was happening this year, what was the consortium working on, the latest developments, such as the plugin, the request part, the different, is it showing? Sorry, okay, all right. The different speakers that will give you an overview. First of all, we have Anne Kusen from SEV Eurodrive. She's our steering committee coordinator, and she will talk a bit about what projects have been going on today, this year, but also, of course, giving you an outlook what we are planning and what we have in store next year. Then Michael Fritz, as a convener of the working group standards, will give you a bit of an overview of what we are planning in the international standardization field. Achim Steinacker, our convener of the tools validation content working group. As I said before, he will give you an overview of the tools that we've been developing this year, like the plugin for the DITA Open Toolkit and the request API. And last but not least, we have Harald Stadelbauer on the floor with the convener with the working group developments, giving you an insight of what's been going on in that field. So without further ado, I would like to ask Anna to take over with the first slides. And also, if you have any questions, there will be time for questions at the end of the session. And also, of course, we encourage our online participants to put questions in the chat. Okay. Anna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for your introduction, Susanna. So also a warm welcome from my side to our presentation, our latest developments. And I will give you a brief summary of what we have achieved in the last year and what we'll be working on in the coming year. Let's start with the review of the roadmap of 2024. And the working group tools, validation and content finalized the plugin for the DITA Open Toolkit and implemented the request part of iiRDS. And this was a huge milestone for the standard because now the R is completed. And as a part of a joint project with the Digital Data Chain Consortium, the working group development started to integrate revised VDI 2770 requirements into iiRDS. And this task, I think it will be completed next week. And the other deliverables are ongoing projects like smart standards, maintenance, and connecting to ontologies. So to develop iiRDS as an international standard, the working group standards started a joint project with the DDCC, the Digital Data Chain Consortium, to submit a new work item proposal. And the next steps for the international standardization are defined and are already in progress. So, and to make iiRDS a part of Industry 4.0, a pilot project for smart standards was implemented in cooperation with iiRDS. The project office published tenders for the online training, and for the pilot projects, the online training took place with 17 participants, and 4 pilot projects were finalized this year. 2 pilot projects are still in progress and will be finalized in 2025. So also ongoing tasks and projects are increasing new members and cooperation with universities, and our marketing activities like social media posts, webinars, presentations, and so on are ongoing tasks. And due to a lower priority, we have postponed the certification of the consultants to 2025. And speaking of 2025, now we take a look at the goals for the next year. And in addition to the further development, for example, for an international standardization, the standard has now has reached a very good stage of development, and now we are focusing on the broad disseminate and use of iiRDS. So the task for the working group tools, validation and content will be delivering support documents for marketing and training, and the evaluation of our tools and their use to further develop and improve them. And for the working group development, there will be a project to align the standard information model with iiRDS, that's for smart standards, and also add the maintenance to the specification. We got a feedback from a pilot project that needed parts of the maintenance are missing, and so this will be a task for the next year. So another task is also to connecting on other ontologies and to make the implementation easier for the users of iiRDS. We will create a FAQ collection and publish it on our website, and add a new group for expert exchange on LinkedIn. So take a look on our website and follow us on LinkedIn. So let's turn over to the working group standards. There's a further, we will further cooperate with the Digital Data Chain Consortium for the new work item proposal. And also a task will be lobbying to mandate, to get the mandate for developing iiRDS as an international standard. And also there will be a further cooperation with smart standards for the project for aligning the standard information model, and also with the IDTA, the Industrial Digital Twin Association, for developing submodels for the asset administration shell. So, and yes, the last but not least, the office activities. We will also publish tenders next year for a new training, and also tender for the funding of possible new pilot projects. And if you're going to plan any projects regarding iiRDS, submit it to the project office once the tender has been published. And our ongoing activities are increasing members in cooperation with universities. For example, maybe there will be a research project or something else. And we want to increase our marketing activities to make the standard even better known, and focusing on the US market, for example. And the task consultant certification, we want to evaluate a concept of a possible certification for the consultants in the next year too. So now I'm finished, and I will handle to my colleagues who will present the topics in detail. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper in the standardization work in which we are involved. One of our most important goals as working group standards, here you can see the members, is the international standardization of iiRDS. So far, we have published a PAS, a publicly available specification with iiRDS, with IEC, and now we are going the next step and want to submit a so-called new work item proposal to make the standard out of the PAS. When we had the go from the IEC TC3 technical committee, the DDCC approached us. DDCC is kind of a consortium, which is a kind of a successor of DDI 2070 group. They have a broader scope now. Many big companies from the process industry have joined together in this consortium, and they are kind of under the lead of BASF. They approached us and said, okay, why don't we merge the two standards, VDI 2770 and iiRDS? Of course, that makes a lot of sense to reduce irritations and questions of industry companies which standard they should use. So we hope we will be having a new joint standard together then in let's say in 2 years, maybe. We had a meeting already in 2023 with representatives from the DDCC, and we found a rough way how to manage to integrate the two things. And we found it's mainly two aspects. One aspect is if you have to deliver documents for legal and contract reasons, then you can use the methodology which is behind VDI 2770. If you want to use dynamic information for dynamic information presentation and so on, then you use iiRDS. The international committee, which is working on the new standard, is IEC TC3 Working Group 28, where I'm the convener. And we have already proposed or submitted a new work item proposal, so-called NP. And we hope that it will be voted on in January and March. First step, of course, is that our national committee in Germany, the DKE, submits this proposal to the top level of IEC TC3. So we hope that with the whole process, we are through at the beginning of next year, so that at the so-called plenary meeting of TC3, which will be held in China, in Chengdu in May next year, we can discuss maybe if there are still any questions, which group will be working on the new standard. And we think that it will be Working Group 28 still. And so we can then go into the technical work for the standard. And this will be phase 2 of our project. The project was assigned to us as TechCom and the consortium by the DDCC because we are well connected in this field, and we have been working with some of the experts who are on the committee, on the working group for many years in the meanwhile. So we have already done a lot of background work with, especially with China and the US, to convince and show their experts why it makes sense to create this standard together with the comments which came from DDCC. The goal would be that maybe until mid next year, if we are good, we have a committee draft, so-called committee draft for vote, the so-called CDV, which is an important step, because then the document, the joint document will be ready. And then we can start phase 3 of the project. That would be then the approval stage, where the so-called P members of TC3 will be voting about our standard. And when it has accepted, then it can be published, which means then it will be an international standard. Well, the advantage is with such a standard, we can go further in several standardization projects like Industry 4.0, because, and for instance, with the digital product passport, because for all these projects or these initiatives, you also need a standard how to represent and how to exchange information for use. Like imagine you are in the digital twin and you're navigating through a machine or another kind of object, and you're at a certain point and want to do or have to do something with it, then you need information for use. And to make all these visions possible, you need a standard for representation, or as we say, request and delivery of technical information. Okay. That was the first part, or the main focus of our work last year, because it takes a lot of time to do all the lobbying and the work on the structures so that it the processes go smoothly. But we are we hope and we are convinced that we'll follow the path and will be successful with it. Okay, then other aspects which we are working on in our working group is cooperation with other bodies. For instance, with the DKE. DKE launched a project which is called iiRDS. That's about the delivery of information about standards in the mentioned context of Industry 4.0. For instance, you navigate in the digital twin and you are at a certain point and then you want to know which standards are relevant in this context. That's also a challenge. And we are glad that Ulrike Parson was our ambassador in the iiRDS project, and that she achieved, and we together achieved, that iiRDS is accepted as a metadata vocabulary for smart standards. What we wanted to do is that we also are able, that we can establish an own domain for the representation of contents of standards. But that was kind of not happening because the big standardization bodies like IEC and ISO decided to create their own standard information model, the so-called SIM. Mark Schubert from Parson worked on this and is now a guest member of the committee who are working on it. And he worked on a lot of comments to align SIM a little bit with iiRDS so that we can work with it as well. And all his remarks were agreed on, so that we are interchangeable with SIM. Thank you very much to Ulrike and Mark that they did that work. That was my report, and if you have questions later, please ask, and I try to answer them. Thank you very much.
Hi from my side. I'm Achim, the convener of the working group Tools Validation Content. And we were not looking at standards and shortcuts and committees, but we are the one doing the dirty little work. And that's our working group with a regular web meeting every second Tuesday of the month. And as Anne pointed out in her introduction, in 2024, we were focusing on the request part of iiRDS. and especially to develop and publish an iiRDS plugin for DITA, just to help to spread the news about iiRDS in North America, where DITA is widely used. And by the end of 2023, we had a tender for an iiRDS plugin for the DITA-OT toolkit. So just to help to transform DITA content, DITA metadata with the help of a tool to iiRDS packages. And Mark Schubert from Parson, who is sitting there, and Martin Kreuzer from Ampolis, who is not here. They were the two guys implementing and developing this open toolkit. And it was a great pleasure to see those two guys arguing and fighting about the best approach. So it took a bit longer than expected, but it was a real nice work, and it's a real nice result. So if you have detailed question about the usage and about the architecture of the DITA-OT toolkit, Mark is the right person, and he's still here the whole day, at least the whole day, probably also tomorrow. So those two have done all the work and just presenting it. And well, on this slide, you can see the result. The result is a plugin implemented in Java and published on a GitHub repository, which can easily be installed in a DITA-OT toolkit environment. It's published under the Apache license, so feel free to do with it whatever you want. Extend it, give comments, use it in your own publication workflow. And the main two features of the DITA-OT toolkit is the extraction of metadata. I mean, DITA with its topic-oriented approach fits perfectly for the concept of iiRDS. Probably because we borrowed it from DITA when we developed iiRDS. The bit more tricky part of DITA is the metadata, because it can appear everywhere in DITA structures. You can have maps, you can have it inside your content, you can have it everywhere. So it's not easy to find all the metadata and also to decide which kind of metadata might be mapped to iiRDS vocabulary. And the basic features is that the title, the topic type, the prod name, and the short description, also the language, could be easily mapped to iiRDS vocabulary. And as the identification of topics throughout publications, and also to identify correct versions of topics can be quite difficult. The ERI assignment for topics, so the unique identification for topics is a big issue. Sometimes you cannot do it within your authoring system, but you will get your the ID for topics and metadata from different systems. So we have a default ERI assignment in the basic features, and we are able to build information objects, the rendition, so the actual content, and the function to transform the DITA XML content to HTML is also used. So we also have some advanced features. So the tender was divided in 2 steps, and there was enough room and also budget for some more advanced features. So we are able to extract some more semantic elements, especially critical dates, so date of creation, date of publication, date of validity. We are also able to extract the metadata from attributes and not only from semantic elements. And probably the most important thing, Martin and Mark, they are covering also extension points to provide custom ERI handle when the ID for topics and metadata has to be retrieved from other systems, probably a CSV file, an Excel file, or probably another PIM system, to custom metadata handler. If you know your DITA files and have special structures, so you need special routines to extract your metadata, you can build your own metadata handling, and you have a generic extension, so as last possibility to do something special required for your information in your company. On the GitHub file, there's also a sample plugin demonstrating how to extend the iiRDS plugin. As I said, an additional iiRDS provider, additional metadata extractor, and implementing iiRDS specific Open Toolkit extension points. So it's not just the tool itself, it's also examples how to use it, how to extend it. And the documents are available as DITA, as PDF, and also all implemented Java classes are documented with the Java doc technique. So it should be quite easy just to download it, install it in your DITA Open Toolkit, and just play around. I think I already mentioned this one. Second tender. A tender we knew we would need it right from the start of the beginning of iiRDS. I mean, think about the R in iiRDS. R stands for request. And up to the beginning of 2024, we didn't have any answer for how to request iiRDS data. But we knew all the time it's not about packaging, it's not about the transportation and a metadata vocabulary. We should also think about a standardized way to retrieve the data, to retrieve the topics and the metadata. Again, we had a request. Probably you know the picture of the guy, Martin, but this time with Lena, and as I said on Monday, not Mark Schubert, but also a woman with a strong opinion. So there was also a big discussion, and again, therefore the result was really great. The main requirements for the iiRDS API was functionality. Use a business standard that is widely used, that it's accepted. And as you can see, well, we're using a REST API, as anyone is doing it at the moment. It should be a standardized interface for system provider. So it's easy for them to offer query APIs when they're managing iiRDS data. And it should be easy to integrate. So modern state-of-the-art functionality for seamless integration. So, and as I said, a REST API. This was the easy part of the tender. The query language is the most complex and tricky aspect, as I will tell you more about in a minute. The response format was more or less easy again, because we could take a widespread standard, it's JSON linked data or JSON LD. Because many implementations, many libraries are using it at the moment. There's a defined serialization of RDF, so it's easy and straightforward to transform our RDF graph-based metadata and structures to a JSON LD structure. So we work quite fast with defining the most basic API endpoints, how to administer, how to get information about the API itself, how to traverse through directory nodes so you can recreate the document structure, and also to access the resources and the content. We also have two API endpoints for the query, and as I said, the query language was the most difficult part. Because we were looking at existing candidates. And if you're dealing with semantic web standards and you're dealing with graph data and RDF, then Spark is one first candidate, probably also GraphQL. But they didn't meet our requirements. And that was not the purpose of the request API. I mean, if you want to use Sparkle, then we are done within a minute. So because then we can just write down use a Sparkle endpoint and you're happy. But this would also require the content delivery system, the system managing the topic, to be a graph-based system. And this is not realistic. Looking at system vendors in the documentation area, and we didn't want to limit our request API to a specific graph database or a graph database. So we didn't use Sparkle, we didn't use GraphQL because they were not directly suitable. Instead, we decided to use a query language in JSON grammar. We are able to represent RDF in this JSON grammar. We borrowed concept from GraphQL and Sparkle, so we are able to formulate hierarchical queries. The query language is extensible, and you can also implement a paging enabled with URL query parameters when you're using the JSON grammar. So hopefully you can see it. That's an example for the well-known PFAN sample data. How is the rotor cleaned by the X5 DH2? We are using the resource. We can tell him, yes, we want to have a result, and we can use those predicate structure to define the parts of the query. So we say we want to have a product variant. It must be X5 DH2. The topic has to relate to the rotor. And therefore, whether predicates are ended, if not otherwise stated, we're able to represent and to formulate a query like this in the JSON LD structure. And then it's in the JSON grammar structure, and then we are able to use JSON LD as a response format. It's perfect for programming environments and RESTful web services, and it enables the representation of graph-based data. And so this is an example how a query result might look like. You can retrieve the iiRDS from the topics, you can retrieve the search results, and then it's easy to use just the next request from the API and get your topic and get your edition. We thought we were able to have the mockup API ready for the TCOM ready for today. Unfortunately, it will take 1 or 2 more weeks, but in the next working group meeting, regular working group meeting, we will present the mockup API. So if you have questions, if you have feedback, that's the perfect point to join us and to ask your questions, to request for more examples. We are still thinking about a Sparkle endpoint because some people are still nagging. So at least we will provide a concept how this might be realized. And as Anne also said, for 2025, we think now the tool support is quite complete. We have tools for generating iiRDS package. We have tools for transforming from DITA to iiRDS. We have a specification for the request API. We have the validation tool. 2025, our focus will be on do some marketing with it and try to help people to get used to the tools, to help that people are using the tools. And we think that with this will be more valuable than just implementing another tool. Thanks. Harald?
Hello, I'm Harald, the convener of the working group development. Actually, this is the team of the working group development. I'm quite happy that I have a very loyal group here. They are participating at almost every meeting, and that case, we can do a lot of fruitful discussions. What is our target? Our target is to extend the use of iiRDS. I wrote here, let iiRDS be integrated in all relevant domains. The target of creating the use of iiRDS is split it up into kind of 3 different branches. One branch is connect to all relevant domains, like for example, maintenance. Connect to other domains like the industrial ontology foundry, things like that. Second branch is create use cases where you can use iiRDS additionally. And the third branch is extend any kind of best practice paper to ease the use of iiRDS from the beginning on. What did we have as priorities in 2024? First of all, like I mentioned beforehand, connect to domains to spread iiRDS. There were 2 priorities, add maintenance to specifications. One point where there is already some preparatory work done. And e-learning, evaluate usefulness of iiRDS in combination with e-learning with the technical documentation. E-learning evaluation was pushed to 2025 for next year. Then concerning the ease of use of iiRDS, support documentation to extend that to ease the use of iiRDS. We heard quite often in the past, give us some kind of best practice paper. Please give us some kind of answering of questions of how to deal with iiRDS. So we had as a priority FAQ collection for the ease of use. Points of priority 2 were connect to top-level ontologies to integrate iiRDS, like in the industrial ontologies foundry, and as well as how to connect up with the basic formal ontology BFO, which is an ISO IEC standard, where a lot of preparatory work is already present and done by Mark Schubert, who is the ambassador to the IOF in person, where we wanted to issue a request for comments on that. And last but not least, we started with the version 1.2 with a SCOS labeling of iiRDS, classes of the core classes. Now, the question was, can we extend iiRDS in that case, or can we create a mapping between iiRDS and SCOS in order to integrate taxonomies based on SCOS, as well as PIM, product information management systems based on SCOS. How did we do in that respect? The Industrial Ontology Foundry, it will be ongoing in 2025. There will be a slide, just as the next slide on that. Then the SCOS labeling for machinery and software for these 2 schemas is still missing. We will integrate that in the next release in 2025. For the core schema, it is already existing. It was issued with the version 1.2 last year. SCOS mapping, we created several kinds and several philosophies of mappings between SCOS and iiRDS. However, we decided then to create some kind of guidance and best practice paper on that, which will be finalized in the second quarter of 2025. BFO harmonization, a lot of, for example, maintenance ontologies are founded on BFO. Why is this the case? Because BFO has some constructs, in that case, of time-based and process-based elements. The request for comments will be drafted till the second quarter of 2025, finally, to actually send it around for comments. The FAQs, best practice documents, a first draft paper, a first collection of FAQs, which should be the most pressing ones, actually, hindering the to proceed with iiRDS, is ready, is currently reviewed among the group, and shall be then published as soon as possible in any kind of channel which we are discussing, like like a LinkedIn possibility, or maybe on our iiRDS portal. Mark Schubert from Parson, he is the ambassador of the Industrial Ontology Foundry, and he's attending the meetings of the IOF. Currently, they are discussing the product service systems kind of problematics. What he's doing, he's reporting there what iiRDS is doing in addition. Now, the product service system issue is a very forthcoming issue, because if you have a machine or you have a physical product and you have software which is not an embedded software, and you are realizing functions in the combination of the product and the software, for example, that's a product service system, and that is something to be considered, how to really map that in the most successful manner in that case. The working group product and service system is currently modeling the bill of materials stuff, and so this will be ongoing, and Mark will there try to harmonize that with our iiRDS initiatives. What came up accidentally and additionally in 2024? A question was raised just recently, the compliance of iiRDS with the EU Accessibility Act. The evaluation in that respect started. We intend to finish that till end of 2024. Just as a point of reference, the EU Accessibility Act will come into force compulsory from June 2025 on. And within our harmonization with eClass, an RDF serialization of eClass came up, which is in a kind of prototypic phase. It's able to be used, but not officially announced. And there we will start the discussions with eClass after the TECOM fair, might be beginning of January 2025, with the delegates who did this RDF serialization. Just as a point of reference, as eClass was based on an XML scheme, not with iris and things like that, we did this construct of external classification, which could be used for other external classification schemas in addition. But having an eClass RDF serialization would ease a lot the whole process actually. What is for 2025? Still on our agenda is maintenance. Technical documentation is widely used in maintenance processes and in maintenance initiatives. Therefore, we will grab that and do a kind of best practices paper, how to deal with that, how to model that. In that case, we were faced with a special request concerning maintenance intervals. And in discussing this point with the maintenance intervals, we discovered how complex it can be. Coming from a railway background, actually, you have either a time distance, like every half a year, or you have a kind of usage scenario, like, for example, do a maintenance after 100 open and closing procedures of a door of a train, for example. So it's started to spread up a lot. We will do their best practice paper on that in reference to the Industrial Digital Twin Association initiatives on the submodels. There is one submodel concerning predictive maintenance, and another submodel is concerning maintenance instructions. And they all are dealing with information out of the technical documentation. In that respect, I have to add this submodel intelligent information for use. The preparatory work was done by Plus Meta and presented last year as an interopera project result, is now on the process to be a fully full IDTA submodel accepted there and released to the public will be at the end of this year, and then can be used for this intelligent information provisioning for between suppliers and OEMs, or OEM and the customer. The smart standards issue will be continued in 2025 concerning SIM. This is actually a final presentation of the priorities. Connect to domains concerning maintenance, adding that to specifications, showing use cases which are already existing, and start with a new release in 2025, which will be at that time when we finish the work on the harmonization with the new VDI 2770. Evaluate e-learning concerning usefulness. Is this a kind of a topic of a specialization or not? Extending the iiRDS software domain, that is a matter of evaluating that. Is it necessary or not concerning this product service system part? And ongoing will be the support documentation, the collecting frequently asked questions to offer actually solutions to any kind of problem upcoming, hindering you to use iiRDS. E-class harmonization will be ongoing, connection to top-level ontologies for the industrial ontology foundry, as well as the BFO is ongoing, and the practice paper will be finalized concerning taxonomy and SCOS integration beginning of 2025. That's it. Many thanks. Sorry. Next slide.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Harald. Thank you for all the conveners for your talks. We are already running out of time, or out of time actually, but there just wanted to check some questions. If there are any questions last minute, we can maybe still have 1 or 2 questions, if there are any. You can maybe, if there are none at all, I'll just check in the chat if there are any questions. Okay. There's a question if does DERCOM association support iiRDS activities? Maybe, I don't know if, is that Michael? Like, it's probably easier if you all come up for the questions. Yeah, up here.
Yeah, we are in a constant communication with DERCOM. We cooperate, and most DERCOM members are also part of the consortium. So they support what we're doing, and this is a very seamless cooperation.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Are there any questions here in the room? Do you have? Otherwise, the speakers are still here. Since we don't have any online questions anymore, you might as well just ask each convener directly if you have any follow-up questions. And we would like to encourage you to give us feedback for today's talk. And I wish you a good day today.